products.
maybe there was what, like one yesterday or no, not even.
No, that was just hinting at it. We haven't broken a
Yeah.
circuit in ages. You know, it doesn't work. Circuit breakers. It turns out if you give 15 minutes for people just to kind of sit around and go, damn, it's really selling off out there.
They
They don't turn around and buy.
saying they don't calm down.
No, they do
Yeah.
not use that time to reflect upon their long term goals. They
I
get out.
I had when I popped into my trading platform on Sunday night, the first message, it was a little pop up just reminding me about the circuit breakers. I thought, oh boy, they're reminding me about the circuit breakers. This can't be good.
You would think you'd
Anyway,
be bullish. I was there for the first circuit breakers, man. That was like the Thai bot crisis,
oh,
and
wow,
I was on the phone immediately because we used to talk on the phone then
yeah.
with my buddies, and it's like, what's the over under on when we break the second circuit breaker? And we're set at like 3 minutes, and I think it took just a little less than 3 minutes to go from
Nice
one to
job.
the other. They don't work.
No. All right. Welcome to Mackey's Retail Roundup. Spencer Israel, Jeff Mackey. Mackey, let's talk retail here. Well, maybe no. Let's start with the overall market. Let's start with the S&P. Tell us where your head's at right now.
It's underneath a helmet, figuratively, and a bomb shelter. Listen, last week, remember last week when we were kind of debating whether or not it's a bear market and everything. Just those were we had. It was all in front of us then. We were young, we were beautiful, and we hadn't yet seen that sort of big reveal on the tariffs. It's the bear market's here. We bounced off 20%, and that was a fine place to bounce. As we're talking, we're trying to bounce again. It's pretty dispirited in general. This tape, holy crap, we're down at a pace that we haven't seen in ages. I mean, it's all this stuff does actually pretty much rhyme for people who were there. That this felt like COVID only, sort of in terms of pace, in terms of speed, and now it's taking on a resemblance in terms of, wow, this doesn't seem like a solvable problem. On the upside, all bottoms seem like unsolvable problems that get resolved. On the downside, maybe this time it doesn't work out.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, things seemed very quaint last Tuesday, and then everything changed on Wednesday, and here we are. So this morning, yesterday, and also a little bit this morning, we were getting a little bit of a bounce. It's probably left a little bit to be desired because we've given some of those gains back now. We're off the lows of this move, though not very far off the lows. So I'm not really sure how good to feel about that. What are you trying to say here with this Nasdaq? I'm not quite sure.
Is the glass half full or half empty? We made a nice low.
Oh, that went
We
over my
came off
head.
the
Yeah,
low.
yeah.
And I decided to make the glass a nice tangy glass of blood just because it seems like we're in kind of that mood. Things are a little sloppy out there. There's blood in the streets. Yeah, but we're off the lows, like you say. We haven't taken them out. The bounce is not great. So you can make the case for a bottom here. It's the problem with that is that with the nature of kind of the way these tariffs are working, meaning they shut down business pretty much immediately from a profit and loss. People just can't order goods. They can't really do business. Every day it gets a little worse. So, it's tempting to think that technically we have a bottom and maybe in terms of sentiment, people seem to, it's on the front page of every paper. Moms are calling their kids. I've got my wife asking me, my wife, my mom, and both my kids have asked me about the stock market. So from a sentimental indicator, it seems like we should make a bottom, but the problem is the news potentially could get worse and worse. Every day of this is kind of a problem. So
And
we're going to need leakage.
wouldn't you agree that the scary thing here is that there is both market uncertainty and business uncertainty, and we don't really get business uncertainty on a macro scale all that often. Obviously, we had that during COVID. Every so often it happens. Market uncertainty happens pretty much all the time, right? But
Yeah.
you don't often get both at the same time, and so we have that now. It's kind of weird.
And it's also weird that the uncertainty is actually kind of being dictated by someone. It can't help but feel just a little personal. These attacks on my stock market. I love my stock market, and as we talked about, people will abandon the casino. We're doing kind of franchise damage to the global trade system. And there are 350 million American customers. There are 8 billion people to sell crap to all over the world. So we're better off selling stuff to people all over the world. The isolationist thing is not a real outcome, but man, these tariffs, negotiating country by country, it's going to take a long time to crank the machine back up.
So what's the conclusion of this chart? Are you glass half full or glass half empty?
I'm glass half empty. I just have a hard time. I think you can trade the bounces. I think if we go down a couple of slides, I think I got RH on there. Yeah. Resto, just to show, it's people can trade this. It's not like we're devoid of trades. There's plenty of volatility. There's plenty of pop. Resto, we pointed out they were reporting there the sublime misfortune of being a furniture company that does nothing but import huge, expensive pieces of furniture from China. And they reported during the release of the tariffs. It was gorgeous timing. It led to a delightful call, down 40%. The beating was unbelievable. It was truly incredible to see happening in real time. And again, here, the execs don't have any idea. So you think, there would be like kind of this rumor circle, or the White House would be out talking to corporate execs. He's finding out his company basically is not going to be able to order another piece of furniture for the foreseeable future in real time on a call. That stock bounced 43%. There are trades here if you want them. It's given back 10% today, and there's absolutely no reason to think that until they're getting a deal at this point is like where they start for RH as a business model. If there's actually a lasting recession from this, the company is levered up enough that it could be a real problem. And that wasn't on people's kind of radars before, because we've never self-inflicted this kind of depths of the potential slowdown that could be kicking in here. We've never done this before. Yep. So whether you think it's going to work or not, it's a lot of risk. We're rolling the dice.
I like what you said. I mean, that's the truth. There are trades if you want them, right? You don't have to take them. No one's putting a gun to your head saying take these trades. But they are there, right? I mean, when volatility goes up, so does opportunity for trades. We're talking trades, right? So be mindful of that. What is this wish list you got here? What is that?
This is what you really need to see, and this is going to be a bounce like today, when it's based supposedly on some guy's rumor and some third-hand person who's like a banker and not it's not Donald Trump himself. I'm selling all those. Because until we get a deal, as I said, the situation just gets worse. That's not a call for the apocalypse. It just means, again, we're in a ruleless, lawless state. You can't handicap that. That's a problem. So we need what the administration needs, what the street needs, is just one tangible deal. Like just Vietnam would be the best one for, say, the shoe industry. They can't even crank up the factories again at Nike until that's resolved and actually in writing and actually done. If they're going to kick in all these tariffs starting in the next day or whatever, there's just a lot of shoes that are going to be floating around the Pacific for a very long time. Vietnam makes something like 90% of shoes. It's going to be just impossible for there to be a meaningful comeback in the market, because until they start striking deals, if they start striking deals with individual companies or countries, we have a potential trade war with the whole earth. And so, that's the part that's making everyone's heads explode. It's not that people are crying in the casino. We're just genuinely worried the whole roof is going to collapse, because with the tariffs that are as listed, we can't be in business anymore. That's a problem. 90-day pause. We could buy that. I think it would at least allow some of these deals to happen without, it's the closest we can get to just closing the market until this all works out, because there's going to be this permanent offer. Like people are just going to be selling stocks. I mean, it's under the without any type of deal. Anytime Nike's up, it's just a sell. It's like, hey, look at that. We got 50 cents a share back on our Nike. Awesome. Let's sell the rip. If you can get a pause on the deal, we can go country by country. And again, the administration needs to start kind of racking up some W's just to get the economy turned back on again. And the last one is just a plausible strategy. Just show me a way out. It can be some permutation of this. It can be 10% to hold over. Just it's the stocks might lead this, but you need just some sort of thing we can actually hang our hats on beyond stocks are oversold. your charts are kind of useless here. The trend is obviously down, and it's going to stay down because it's going there for kind of fundamental reasons. When stuff lines up like that, don't get in the way.
Hey, listen, we thought we had a 90-day pulse for like a half hour yesterday. So if you're wondering how the market would react to that, go look at the tape from like 10 a.m. On Monday morning, right? Because that's when that headline was going out, and we thought maybe we have that, and it turns out we didn't, or we don't. But okay, we're 0 for 3 here. You'll have to update this if or when one of those things.
That's kind of the idea, but until we get it, and they can play off each other.
Yep.
One tangible deal obviously only gets us so far, but again, that becomes just sort of okay, like it's been done. Particularly if it's Vietnam, just because that's going to be where your shoes are. I think the due diligence that people can do, what I'm doing, is just going country by country, company by company, and just trying to figure out who makes stuff where, to see how big a deal it is. For instance, for Nike, for On Holdings, it's to get, say, a deal on Vietnam versus Indonesia versus China.
All right, so we talked about RH. That was ground zero last week for retail. Not the only chart you have here, though. Lululemon, I love this. Will be a buy someday. That day is probably not today for people like you, for longer term oriented people, right?
This is another one where, man, it should bounce. Like you'd figure it would bounce, but there's just so much exposure to China. There's so much. They get the double whammy because they make a ton of their stuff there, and they're also they're counting on China for growth, and the real kick in the ass for them is they have to they're in the middle of a turnaround just fundamentally. The North American growth is just stopped, so they need a lot to go right, and they can't kind of start fixing anything until they're going to be able to import clothing again. Huge margins. Another one that how do you slap a P on it? The P is kind of high. It's still up there over 20. Well, they're not really
it's
growing.
Always been high, right?
It's always been high, but they've always been growing. And so that growth is stopped effectively. Normally, it would have taken a really long time. If you look at this chart, it's been about 3 years just kind of churn around, and finally it just broke, obviously, on these tariff things. But you've got, could it fill that gap? Like, that's just a crazy formation that it just gapped down, and normally you'd see a bounce of some sort before now, and already today it opened strong, and people are just like, wow, what a great opportunity to sell. It's kind of nuts. I was in a Viore here. Speaking of just impacts on other financial markets, that's going to be, or was going to be, one of the biggest IPOs of the year. Viore is a competitor to Lulu. It's got a $5-6 billion valuation. Going to be an enormous deal. Their entire store is China, Vietnam. There's just no way. How does the company possibly go public with the quarter that's just about to happen? It's going to be a mess, and it's going to screw up the financials for a long time.
And you can't just snap your fingers and start a factory in America, right?
You can start to the stocks just gotten the crap kicked out of them. It's the selling has been just wildly indiscriminate. Names that I like, Peloton. That's a name that honestly they've got a quarter's worth of inventory, but there's a vibrant aftermarket for the bikes. And they don't import the content of the nice young person riding a bike telling you to really do your best. Like that turns out it's a tariff-free product. They get to sell that content right over there, and you get to watch it and work your sweat up. And so it doesn't matter.
Look,
it's down to
first, ask questions later, and the time to ask questions is coming, right? So,
yeah. And they sold. A lot of those small caps, some in financial danger. If you are in financial jeopardy, if you're one of these companies that's just barely cash flow positive, you are super hosed right now. A little of that's with Peloton, a little of that's with Stitch Fix. These are really good companies that a deep recession will be fine. Yeah. But chances are going up all the time. I just had to point out Walmart because it's all American and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's move away from like maybe small cap land. Let's go to like the flight to safety. You think of like who is the who has the balance sheet to fortify themselves through a crisis like this? It's Walmart, it's Costco, right? It's Amazon. These guys can handle a little
There's really going to be
trade.
three retailers on earth. Like, honest to God, it's if we just keep the tariffs right where they are. Walmart and China are peas and carrots, man. It's you're a super huge, powerful organization. We are too. Let's strike a deal. They'll figure something out. It's Walmart has the most diverse offerings. They have the most resources to kind of get through this, and truthfully, they've got the deepest pockets. And so, one way or the other, kind of the longer this goes, Walmart's earnings will be shot, but so will everyone else in retail. And so you take a couple of years out of their earnings and they just gain massive share, which is the only way Walmart's going to grow anyways. Just rip it straight out of Target's cold dead fingers. Target makes most of their margin on selling that consumer discretionary stuff, most of which comes from places that are now just ridiculously tariffed. So that's a stock that, again, it might be cheap if we just go back in time and pretend like the tariffs never happened, but that seems less likely every day.
All right. Last one here. I love this. Walk us through this. So, are you saying we are at stage 4? Is that what you're trying to say here?
I don't know if you noticed. There's just a whiff of resentment out there about this movement. People are pissed, and they should be. You can't tell if it's trolling. I don't know if it was you I was joking with, or I was talking to somebody about how funny it would be if Trump just kind of crashed the market seemingly on purpose and then bragged about cutting capital gains taxes, which is exactly what he did. And it's like, is he trying? He's dicking with us, right? Because that's hilarious. It's like that's actually kind of funny. It's that's kind of a good joke, and in just like a huge, boy, this is my uncle who busts my balls kind of way. Hey, how are those capital gains taxes? But that's the way we're making policy now. It's people are not taking it well. That's my read of the people. I'm a man of the people, Spencer, and I think folks are getting a little grumpy with this sort of kind of recession, just because maybe it would be better for the country if we hurt a little bit and started like screwing tiny little screws into iPhones over here. It doesn't make sense. So, people were angry in the great financial crisis. People were furious, and rightfully so. I'm not really making light of it. Like, that is part of the sell-off. It's you're in the blame, and that's when you get kind of the fix. You discover where the tension points are. But people have to kind of get through giving up on the market. They buy the dips at first, then they tell you that it doesn't matter because they're crushing so hard and they're a digital billionaire. Then that falls apart and they kind of admit they maybe should have taken off the table. And then they get super pissed and then they just sell everything. And then we bought them. And, but it can take a while. Sometimes it's really fast. COVID, it was super fast. The great financial crisis, it took 6-7 months of just being super mad and the government chucking money at it and changing the rules and starting over and over again before it finally became apparent that, they've thrown enough money at it. But it's a process, man. And the trap for investors out there is convincing themselves that they really understand it. It's a total blind ass guess. People were, it's the idea that oh, this is what you voted for. But there's a big difference between 10% tariffs and just a piece of tag board that's held up with a bunch of fake math and just has here's a 90% tariff. Screw those guys. The game's over, Madagascar. We're sick of taking shit from you on your vanilla beans, and now it's on. Game on. No one could see that coming. That was not what we voted. That was just kind of from out of left field.
What do they say? The night is darkest just before the dawn. So
it's pitch black, baby. It is. Get your miner's helmet.
maybe getting blacker, maybe not. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
But all right, we're gonna be doing this video every week, every Tuesday at this time. I did want to mention also, if you want to actually find out what Jeff is buying and selling and adding and removing from his portfolio and adding to his watch list, the only way to do that is by joining his retail roundup. The link is in the description and in the chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're watching on our site, you can at the top there's a little drop down menu with the link to what I'm talking about. If you're watching us on Twitter, come on over to stockmarkettv.com and you can see the link in the main navigation bar at the top. Jeff will be sending out a video to his members later on this week, talking about what he's doing, actually, or more importantly, what he's going to do if certain things happen, right?
We're making plans. We're telling
Yeah.
this is the time to grind, man. Do your homework, and that's what we're trying to help people learn how to do.
That's right.
Let's figure it out.
All right. Thanks for watching, Jeff. Thanks as always. Chat. Thank you as
Absolutely.
always. We'll see you guys next time.